My name is Nicoleta Cherciu. I am the managing partner of Cherciu & Co. My firm specializes in technology law and investment law. Just a brief introduction into my background. I am a lawyer as of 8 years now. I've started with NNDKP, which is a very big law firm in Romania. Then I joined UiPath. I was legal counsel at UiPath in their USA team for a couple of years. Then I decided that I want to go into academia and into technology regulation and research deeper. So I did a postdoc in Pisa on the regulation of AI and robotics. And for a few years now, as I said, I'm the managing partner of Cherciu & Co. We focus on technology, legal matters, intellectual property, but corporate matters and investment as well. Actually, for today's talk, I think I decided to focus. So the structure is that I will speak for 10 or 20 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes, and then you can ask me any questions you may have. And I decided to focus on the sort of contractual matters related to fundraising, considering that the majority of you, as far as I understand, you are about to incorporate your company or to raise a round. Especially we have the case of the winning team or the winning teams that will sign a term sheet with early games. So I guess we can maybe move on to the slide right now. So actually, I did before today's workshop just a Figma that you can take into account. We can go directly to that. Yeah. So here I said I am the, so it starts with I am the startup founder of a Romanian company, because I actually wanted to split this into two parts, but then I realized I don't have enough time for that. I also wanted to cover the part of doing a flip to the USA. So as Razvan was saying, maybe later down the road you will also look at expanding on the USA market and getting investors from the USA, and in that case clients and investors may ask from you to incorporate a company in the USA, and doing that and moving your corporate structure and your investment structure from here to the USA requires some steps. We will not cover those right now, but if you have any questions on that, let me know afterwards, we can discuss more. Yeah, so basically, if you have a company, you may want very well to establish internally your corporate and your governance structure and discuss with your founders some very important aspects. I selected a few of them. One of them relates to intellectual property. So everyone that is working from the company, for the company, should assign the intellectual property to the company. If you get an investment, investors will want to do the due diligence before putting any money into the company, and they will look at this aspect. Now you may think, okay, maybe we will be able to cover this later down the road when we get the investment. This works very well provided you get along up to that stage. However, sometimes it happens that founders split and some of them want to continue with the company, some of them want to leave. Therefore, it is very important from the beginning to assign to the company the intellectual property that you all are creating. This can be done through a clause. If you need also help with that, let me know and I'll gladly help you and give you the required indications. Okay, now just a slight detail. So the intellectual property you are creating for the company will not vest with the company automatically, so you need to do this contractually. Another important aspect that you may want to discuss with your co-founders is the shareholding structure, and what happens if one of you leaves the company. I've seen situations and cases where founders decided to stop working on the product or in the company, let's say, for example, after 2 years. So this puts you in a sort of a difficult situation. What happens with the shares if one of the co-founders leaves? This may and can be regulated from the beginning with the so-called clauses of good liver and bad liver, and it can be done through a shareholders agreement. Basically, it's an agreement between the founders. What does it mean? It means that, for example, if a founder will be deemed a bad liver, for example, if he simply abandons the company and stops doing the work that it needs to be done. In this case, the other founder has the right to buy the unvested shares of the founder. So you agree from the beginning that, hey, look, I have 50% of the company, you have 50% of the company. We go this and register this with the trade registry. However, contractually, we will consider that this 50% will vest for a period of 4 years. And this means that if you leave after 2 years, 50% of your 50% will be deemed unvested, and I will be able to purchase it at nominal value. You will not be able to keep it. So this is something that you need to agree on and have it written specifically in an agreement. Again, let me know if you need help with this. If the founder is a good liver meaning that, for example, they have, I don't know, a 30% shareholding in the company, and the other founders decide to simply terminate their agreement without cause, or if they, I don't know, have any disability. Basically, a good liver clause would provide that they get to keep the vested shares and you get to buy the unvested shares at fair value. Now, this is important to have it agreed between you from the beginning, because good fences make good neighbors. But these clauses will also be asked and be included in the shareholders agreement by the investors. Now, investors, in addition to these clauses that I just mentioned, if you do an equity round, that is an investment round where you issue shares to the investors, they will want to have some extra clauses other than those that we just mentioned. Namely, they will want to have an anti-dilution clause, which means that you will not be able to issue shares in new rounds at a lower price per share than the price per share they paid. Basically, you will not be able to do a down round. Then they will ask to have a drag-along clause. Drag-along clauses provide that if, in general, of course there can be variations, if the majority of the shares held by the founders and the majority of the shares held by the investors decide to sell the company, the other ones, just like in a democracy, would have to sell, however, forcefully. So basically, you can drag them into the sale. Then you also have clauses that refer to tag-along, which allow shareholders to sell with the other shareholders pro rata with their shareholding. For example, if a founder is going to sell, an investor would want to tag along in that sale. If a founder wants to sell 50% of their shares and an investor has 5% of the cap table, then the investor will get to sell 5% of the 50%. So basically, they take a bit of from your cut, and they get to participate in the sale. And the last one provision that I want to mention to you here, just to get used to these notions actually, I think it may be useful, is the liquidation preference, which provides that in case of any sale, the investor will get the original purchase price. That is, for example, let's take the scenario of the drag-along. In a drag-along scenario where you are selling the company, basically you are doing an exit, the investors are the ones that get paid and they receive first the amount they have invested. And it's normal because like investors need these mechanisms to make sure they recover at least the investment. And basically these are provisions specific to equity rounds, that is rounds where you they put the money in and you also issue the shares. However, there can be intermediary options. There is the option of the convertible loan agreement, or SAFE, which means it's an acronym for Simple Agreement for Future Equity. It's actually an acronym created by Y Combinator. I'm sure you know of it. It's basically a template of an agreement that allows investors to invest in a company without shares being issued at that time. It provides, however, that shares will be issued at a later date, and the investment will be converted into shares at a later date when the equity round will be carried out. Now, why you may want to do this? Because you are, for example, in a hurry. You need money to survive, and you don't have like the resources to do all the documentation and all the equity round stuff on the one hand. On the other hand, maybe you have some angel investors or like a small fund that it's not ready to do an evaluation of the company, and they want to have other investors with more expertise doing an evaluation on the company, so they just want to put money into the company, but wait until they get the equity. Now, as I said, there may be cases when, for example, you are preparing for a Series A, you just got an investment round, but you need some money to get you through the next 6 months until you do the Series A. So you go to the existing investors and ask them for money, and they put money into the company through a convertible loan agreement, which, as I said, will be converted into shares at the equity round. And normally, you'll see that these provisions, I'm pretty sure soon you will interact with this type of instruments. They provide that the investor gets the shares at a discount of 20%. Now it depends on how long it will take until the round gets raised, but the discount of 20%, it's a standard practice, especially when someone invests into the company at the early stage. And then you will see that they also include something like a floor valuation. Actually, this is something you'll want to ask. You will want to include in the agreement a floor valuation, because convertible loans agreement provide that the investor will get converted at the price per share established in the investment round at a discount of 20%, but you may want to control from now the floor of the valuation. So basically, you've seen how company valuations decreased so much lately. Now they are going back up again, there were founders that were, let's say, well prepared enough to establish in their agreements a floor valuation, so that due to economic changes, the valuation didn't drop that much. And you will also have a capped valuation, maybe. Capped valuation will be asked by the investors. So they'll be like, okay, I'm giving you money, but I don't want to be converted at the price per share at, 20 million valuation, considering they are looking at a company that right now is valued at 10 million. So they will want to also cap the valuation so they don't have extraordinary surprises. But here you need to be careful actually to cap it, taking into account also the investment you are getting through this instrument. So basically you'll need to add these instruments to your existing valuation and then add a bit more in order to cap the valuation, because valuation matters, because it is basically you have this company and you are selling chunks of it, of that company to investors through safes or equity rounds. So you need to really negotiate the price as up as possible, because you need to be like to manage very well like the shares that you're having and the percentages that you're having, so you can get that company to many series and you don't get diluted very much, because with every round that you're getting, the founders are getting diluted. So for example, if you are getting 200,000 euros at a company, in a company that it's valued at 1 million, you're selling basically 10% of the company. But if you manage to negotiate a valuation of 1.5 million, then you will be selling less of the company. So you may want to have a valuation as big as possible. So that's about it. Actually, I'm not sure if I'm in time. So now, if you have any questions related to what we just discussed or any other questions, I'm happy to answer. As I said, also on IP, maybe you have, I don't know, patents, trademarks, you may want to apply for some. Yeah.
Hello. Yes, so I have a curiosity, a question. So, as a small company, as a SRL, okay, the main document of this company is this act constitutive, okay? The shareholder agreement, can you please provide more information about it? For example, this is like a document that regulates the internal workings of the company. And for example, the responsibilities or the internal meetings, are these written in the shareholders agreement, or should they be written in the act constitutive directly?
So the majority of the provisions, they are written in the act constitutive, articles of incorporation of the company. For example, how do we convene shareholders meetings? How do we adopt decision? What's the applicable majority? Who's the director? So on and so forth. So this would be in the act constitutive. But then there are some other aspects that you may not want to get them and make them public at the trade registry. So you just agree them in a separate document, which is the shareholders agreement. You can also add all these clauses in the articles of incorporation also. So the difference between the shareholders agreement and the articles of incorporation is that the articles of incorporation, they get published at the trade registry. Also, like the law provides for some specific provisions in the articles of incorporation, but nothing is stopping you to take these clauses that we just discussed and put them in the same document. But sometimes, like if you have, I guess the only objection to adding these in the articles of incorporation is the confidentiality matter. Like if you're discussing, I don't know, for example, in the anti-dilution clause, you will, anti-dilution, as I said, it says, you will not be selling shares at the next round at the price per share that is less than this price per share. So if you're adding the anti-dilution clause in the articles of incorporation, you will be sort of telling everyone what's the price per share in your company in this round. And sometimes you want to keep that confidential.
Can I please have a short follow-up question? So
Sure.
for a small company, for all intensive purposes, AGA and the board is kind of the same thing.
Not necessarily, no. No, they are not the same thing. Like there are decisions that in a small company, limited liability company, the board cannot make, and they cannot be delegated by the shareholders meeting to the board. For example, share increase capitals, majorări de capital social, which also, like majority of financing rounds, as I said, equity rounds, they are majorări de capital social, share increase, capital share increase, which are adopted by the shareholders meeting. And also, something that you will also see if you interact with investors is that they will want to have in the shareholders agreement or in the articles of incorporation a clause that is so-called reserved matters, which is some matters and some decisions that cannot be adopted without their approval, which is sort of a veto right they have in the company. And some of these decisions refer to share capital increases, which means that if you are raising a new round, the investor will have to agree. I don't know, anyway, but it's important. I mean, I know, but I'm not sure if I should continue enumerating these matters. For example, like selecting the directors, increasing the number of directors. These important decisions, you will be able to adopt them after you get an investor only with their approval, because they will want to have the veto. Changing the, I don't know, the seat of incorporation, so on and so forth.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Uh-oh. Maybe from online, do we have any questions?
I'm curious about how VSOP and ESOP contracts work in Romania. How legally binding are they?
They are very, the question refers to equity stock option plans and virtual stock option plans. I actually did a workshop with Launch, and it's on YouTube. It's a 1-hour workshop, so if you're interested, you can check it out. And also wrote on startup.ro an article addressed to founders on equity stock option plans. Equity stock option plans, they are regulated in Romania. Basically, they are a benefit the company offers in the form of shares that get vested over a period of time to employees in order to motivate them and to make them stay with the company, so on and so forth. Equity stock option plans are regulated in Romania in the tax code. They are binding, they are enforceable, provided so the tax legal framework is specific and clear for equity stock option plans addressed to employees. However, the situation is not as clear with respect to stock options that are granted to collaborators or contractors. Actually, PFA, limited liability company, so on and so forth. You can, of course, agree on a type of agreement like with them as well, but you will need a legal and a tax consultant to assist you on that. So that can be addressed only on a case-by-case basis. And with respect to virtual stock options plan, it is the same. in a virtual stock option plan, the beneficiary doesn't get the shares, as in the case with equity stock option plans, but they get the right to receive compensation at an exit event equal to, I don't know, a certain number of shares. So they never get the shares, but they get part of the proceeds from the exit. And this is, again, a contract, and it can be binding. The only problem is on tax, actually. That's the most important part. So you'll need a tax consultant, but it can definitely be implemented.
There's a follow-up question here. Can a person in this situation be tricked by the company?
Well, if you don't have an agreement, of course you can be tricked, but if you have an agreement, no. I would say no, because you have an enforceable right against the company. It is important to have an agreement, definitely. Have it in writing, have it signed. There are, like, it depends on the situation. For example, right now, I am also, when I work with companies that grant equity stock options to their employees, we tend to postpone the moment when the shares are issued. So, for example, you get an agreement and it says you get the right to receive 100 shares over a period of 4 years. So we wait until the full 4 years expire, until we add that employee in the shareholding structure in the cap table, even though basically their right gets accrued and enforceable as every year passes. And why do we do that? Because if we register them at the trade registry, then you have to summon the employees to the shareholders meeting, so on and so forth. Unfortunately, right now in Romania, we don't have the option to issue shares with no voting rights, but I have been working on a legislative proposal, and actually, and maybe hopefully it will pass sometime this summer. I don't know, because politics is very complicated. We worked in a working group, of course, with the parliament, so maybe the law will change and we'll have the option to issue no voting shares. Case in which a company will be able to register its employees as the time passes and as they get vested, and maybe not wait until full vesting so that these employees are not in the cap table. But again, this is a very specific situation. So I'm not talking about cases where you don't have an agreement. Now, that depends only on trust.
So for a startup, does it make sense at the beginning to do a PFA versus a SRL? Because a SRL also implies having to pay for a accountant and stuff like that. And a PFA doesn't, and in the beginning, maybe you want to be legal with your startup, but at the same time, you don't want to pay the taxes since you're not going to make profit in the beginning. What are the pros and cons of each?
So if you are a PFA, a PFA, basically you cannot hire people, you do not have a legal, a structure that has legal personality in itself. You don't have shareholders, it's just you. Like the PFA allows a person to work as a professional and issue invoices, that's it. But you don't have shares, you don't have an asset, you cannot get investors. So if you plan to have a company and have a startup, definitely you should do an SRL. If you are working, however, on prototypes and maybe you don't want to register the SRL just yet, then you at least need to make sure that you have like contractually everything agreed with the persons that you are working with. IP allocation, co-development, so on and so forth. But I guess that maybe to a certain extent this is even more difficult than just having an SRL and having everyone assign their IP to the vehicle. So I'd say SRL.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We have a medical startup, and usually medical startups should conduct clinical trials. So what are the ethical means to do that prior to launching a product?
So we just did a research on that for a client. Basically, it depends on a case-by-case basis. You have the medical devices regulation, and you can check it out yourself. It's in all languages of the European Union, and it being a regulation, it means that it's directly applicable in Romania as a law. So it's a European regulation. And it provides that medical devices, depending on their type and on their risk, you as a manufacturer have to comply with different obligations. Sometimes you are required to do only a self-assessment and a declaration of conformity, which is something like a dossier that you do, like a file that you complete internally. But sometimes if you have, I don't know, but it has to be checked out. But I'm just giving an example, like a surgical device. Of course, you need to have that certified by a third-party notified body that will issue the certification and will verify the conformity of the device with multiple standards. But you can start with reading that, and also you can also discuss with the agency that we have in Romania on certification of medical devices. You can Google that and call them. It's very possible they will ask that you send them a formal email, but you can also do that. So that's sort of like a way you can get, at least at the beginning, some incipient advice.
Can I also come with a follow-up question?
Yeah.
Okay. What is the Romanian equivalent of FDA approval? So FDA is for America, and I do not really know what is for Eastern European.
Can you repeat the question, please?
What is the Romania or Europe equivalent of FDA approval?
Yeah, so where is Theo? What's the name of the... No, the name of the agency here in Romania on medical devices. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't know the full name. So yeah, it's basically just what you need to... Thank you. Theo, she's my colleague. She just got here. Yeah. So basically, that's the agency I was telling you about, that you can also inquire with them on, like, tell them, hey, we have this device, how can we get it approved? Yeah, it's welcome. Long name. Anything else?
So I have another question. So for a company that focuses primarily on user data, user informations, how easy would be to get a GDPR right, or should somebody that works at such a company hire a lawyer, or what would such a process be?
Yeah, I guess like it's a very broad question. Definitely, it's recommendable that you get some advice on this, Depending on the type of data you're processing and on the amount of data you may need to appoint a data protection officer, which doesn't necessarily have to be a lawyer, but you'll need to assess that because it's not required in all cases. But what is your, can you give me a more specific example of what you're doing? Or
It's a digital business cards platform, and users give the information that they want to use in their business cards to share the contact, and also since that information is kind of in a way public because you want to be able to share it with everybody, so in terms of API security that has to be public, because if, for example, that user goes to whoever and touches their phone or shares the contact, that API is not necessarily protective, it's public in a way. So and also in the future those kind of informations would be shared amongst the users of the platform. So
yeah, there's not, I mean, if users agree to it, that's fine, but then also you have, of course, to comply with security requirements, so on and so forth. So you'll have to look at that from a technical point of view, but also from a legal standpoint. Yeah, definitely. You need legal assistance, I'd say.
So a data protection officer?
No. So I guess that right now, if you're just starting, you wouldn't need a data protection officer, but you may need someone to help you with drafting the policies, getting consent in a proper way, helping you draft the required policies. For example, GDPR has some requirements, data minimization, confidentiality, security. Anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Is anyone okay?
What exactly do investors tend to look mainly when investing in a new company?
That's from a legal perspective. Yeah.
From a legal perspective, yeah.
Yes. So they look, as I said, at IP. That's very important, actually. It's crucial, and you can get it very well done, as I said, with the clause. But then also, IP assignment is a bit also technical from a legal standpoint, so the clause has to be drafted in a specific way, but that's a very important aspect. You need this clause in the agreement that you have with the founders, with the persons that are working on product, contractors, employees, everyone. Then what's also very important, basically at the beginning, I guess there aren't so many liabilities. It would be important, like if you process data, to be compliant, of course. If you have any regulated activity, like, for example, in the case of medical devices, to have that planned out a bit, to look at the costs, so on and so forth, because regulatory involves costs, so investors also look at that. It is also important, as I said, with the case, as it is the case with the founders. Normally, investors want situations that are clear, so they don't want founders that are no longer involved in the cap table and having shares in the company. So it is very important to have founders that have really leave the company. Like in some cases, even investors may want to buy out that founder. For example, if a founder has 10% down the road, maybe investors will want to buy out that investor just to have a clean cap table. Because normally minority shareholders should be investors and not former founders. So
Thank you.
that's about it, more or less.
Yeah, so in terms of hiring a lawyer, I'm curious if you would recommend working with them as hiring them or like getting them on the team, because I got this advice to get a lawyer on the team to actually give them shares for their work, and I don't know this is a good idea.
I guess it depends on how you structure it and how like I couldn't necessarily advise in this respect. I'm not sure. So again, it's also more about business. I'm not sure if companies should be like as giving with shares. I guess it's very difficult, like at the beginning, to be like, okay, so I'm giving you 5 shares, but what are they worth? Like, how do we decide what they're worth? I'm not sure also at this stage if the lawyers or the persons contributing would be motivated. So, yeah, maybe you're just giving shares and just the time passes and nothing really substantial happens. I think if you go down this route, excluding other complexities that maybe you should take into account, it would be good to have basically the vesting tied to the fulfillment of certain KPIs.
Okay.
Like not just, okay, we work together for half a year. We work together for half a year and you get 3 shares, but this and that needs to happen as well. And actually this is something that it normally can be included in stock option plans regardless of the field and of the work.
Thank you.
Welcome. We're good? Okay. Maybe I can say just 2 words on IP if you are interested. So I'm not sure if any of you have patents here, but I guess, and maybe some of you are into research. One point that I would like to make is if you have a solution and you want to apply for a patent, consider and evaluate if you have the funds to apply for the patent internationally, or at least into as many markets as relevant as possible. If you go to apply for a patent only at OSIM and you don't extend the patent to the European Union or to the USA or to other important markets, then you will have protection only in Romania. And Romania, it's actually sort of irrelevant market. Actually, if you look at the patent trends, investors and big companies investing into research, they tend to register their patents in the USA and in Western Europe. They don't get close by to Eastern Europe because that's where the relevant markets are. So if you're applying only in Romania, you would disclose your invention to the world. Others would be able to copy it in other territories, whereas you have only protection in this small country and small market. So if you don't have money to go internationally with the patent and have a strong patent strategy, maybe it's better to keep the invention secret and commercialize it and protect it through trade secrets. That's also a good way of protecting your inventions and actually any creation. And just to give you, like, there are some famous examples that everyone uses, like school textbook examples, the Coca-Cola recipe, and like the Google search algorithm. They are protected by trade secrets. And on trademark, since you also, for example, asked what are also founders investors looking at, sometimes they are they are interested to see if you have a trademark registered. So I think that this should be somehow navigated properly. Like, you do not want to rush into registering your trademark unless you have invested into branding, you have consulted someone in branding. I've seen actually cases where, like, in the due diligence, in the report, the lawyer from the investor, when I was assisting a startup, said that, okay, you haven't registered your trademark. We urge you to register the trademark as much as possible. But that client had, I don't know, five users, or I'm exaggerating, but like a small base of users. They didn't have any advice on branding or on marketing, so on and so forth. So if you want to go forward with registering a trademark, work with the people that were recommended here at other workshops. I'm pretty sure that you did workshops on branding, and only when you are sure, move on with registering the trademark. That's not very urgent. And vice versa is, don't wait too long as well. Like, don't stay 2 or 3 years until you acquire a distinctiveness in the market, and then you go into the public trade registry public registry of trademarks and find out that someone has your trademark, and you may be potentially also liable for infringement. But like, if someone has a similar trademark, you would most definitely not be able to register your own, even though you kept investing into branding for 3 years. And if you want to check your trademark, there's a registry called TMView, so Trademark View, TMView. Just Google it, and that's a resource that you can check out and see who has trademarks out there registered and that are similar to mine.